All right, Anatomy, we have made it to our 13th and final system of the body, and that's the lymphatic system. For this unit, I don't have you a set of student notes for you to copy down or anything like that. I just want you to watch the video. You're welcome to scroll back through it and answering quiz questions and things like that. We're going to keep it pretty short, pretty concise, just to the slides mainly. Not a lot of discussion that we obviously can have over the computer. But just want to finish this year out strong with this last body sense system. So the lymphatic system, if I had to describe it to you, I would describe garbage men or people, garbage people. How about that? Garbage people that pick up your trash, that come around, pretty much every week, and they collect the debris from your home, and then they take it away, and everything's great. We don't really notice them, do we? We don't really pay a lot of attention to them. We just throw our trash in a can or whatever, and then it's suddenly gone, and you redo it all over again. The lymphatic system is just like that. Most of the time, it goes unbeknownst to us. We don't really pay much attention to it when it's doing its job correctly. Now, think about them garbage men, garbage people. What if they didn't pick up your trash 3 weeks in a row? You would definitely know, right? You and your household would start to collect trash, and it would set up, and you'd be going, where are these garbage men? Lymphatic system is like that. It does a great job at filtering out basically garbage in our body, but when it acts up or it works overtime or doesn't do its job, then we pay it special attention. So kind of keep that example in mind. That's the way I like to always think about the lymphatic system. What does the lymphatic system do? Here's some just tidbits about it. It includes these lymph vessels, ducts, lymph ducts, and lymph nodes. One of its main jobs is to protect the body from infection. We're going to spend a portion of these notes talking about infections and how the body tries to keep pathogens or things that can cause infections out of your body. The lymphatic system is part of that. The lymphatic system keeps waste products from entering the general circulation, keeping it out of the bloodstream. Of course, we know the bloodstream, hopefully we know, goes all throughout the body, reaches every portion of our body, and this keeps those waste products, possible pathogens and things, out of that. And it is certainly dependent on the vascular system, so the circulatory system works kind of hand in hand with the lymphatic. Hopefully by now you've watched the intro video that discussed that a little more. So let's talk about lymph. Lymph, besides being so much fun to say, lymph is clear fluid that contains many white blood cells. Lymph is what fills these lymphatic vessels. It carries different waste products and filters them out before lymph basically enters back into the bloodstream. Lymphatic system, it picks up extra fluid in the body as well and returns it to the blood. In that intro video, it discussed this a little more in length of how our blood vessels does allow some fluids to escape. They do come out of these blood vessels in certain places, and instead of that extra fluid just sitting up in our body, the lymph vessels collect these things. They collect all this extra fluid as well as any toxic substances. It carries through this lymphatic system. These lymphatic vessels reach to lymph nodes, as we're going to see them in a minute, and it filters these things out. It gets rid of the bad stuff, and then this lymph, the clear fluid, enters back into the bloodstream. It's a really cool system how it actually all works out, and it does its job day in, day out, really, unless there's something wrong. So there's these trunks, these lymphatic trunks, and these lymphatic ducts. There's these large portions. Remember when we learned about the circulatory system, of course, we learned about like the aorta and the vena cava. Those are the largest arteries and veins. And then we talked about that there's smaller ones called venules and arterioles. And then it gets even down to arteries, veins, and, capillaries, smaller than that. Lymph system does the same kind of setup. These lymphatic ducts, you don't have to really know much about the right and left-hand sides, but you can see what they drain. The drains on the right side of the head, the upper torso, the right arm, they all filter. And eventually, all that lymph from those areas come to this right lymphatic duct. The left lymphatic duct or the thoracic duct drains lymph from the legs, the abdominal regions, and the upper left side of the body. Okay, so these are just big collecting areas. Lymph nodes are pretty unique and pretty awesome. There are roughly 500 to 600 in the body. But in some places they're more collected. Okay, so they're kind of set up. The bottom portion here talks about common areas where lymph nodes can be felt. This is where there's kind of like a conglomeration. There's a bunch of them together on these 500 to 600, but they're spread all throughout our body. They produce immune cells to fight infection. We're going to discuss those immune cells a little bit later in our notes. These nodes also filters out this clear fluid, this lymph, and removes any foreign material. So it kind of gets set up in these areas. Lymph nodes are probably most well known because when we get sick and when there's an infection, it causes them to enlarge, causes them to swell up, because there's more white blood cells go into that area. They are killing off infections. That's what white blood cells do. They try to fight off any type of pathogens that come in. Some common areas that I mentioned a minute ago: the groin, the armpits, especially the armpit, behind the ears, the back of the head, the sides of the neck is a very common one, and under the jaw and chin. Not everybody, and not every infection, but a lot of infections, when it gets pretty serious, you can feel that it's swollen up on your neck. That's when, if you've ever gone to the doctor and they've kind of rubbed their hands on your neck, the side of your neck, and then like under your ears and jawline, they're seeing that these lymph nodes are swelling up, because that shows, hey, there's an infection that's setting up. This person's body's white blood cells are really amped up in production, and they're going out to kill an infection. So lymph nodes all over the body. The tonsils and the adenoids are actually lymph nodes. They're specialized. They're located in the throat. You can see on the diagrams the tonsils kind of on either side of the back of the mouth, the adenoids up into the sinus cavity. I really like that diagram on the left there. It kind of shows where they're at. These get a lot of work. They get a whole lot of infections coming that way. Anything that we're breathing in through our mouth, our nasal passages, trying to get in our respiratory system, they do a really good job of trying to fight these things off. The problem with that is, as much as they're coming in contact with, these are very commonly face an infection and can become overused and even infected themselves. If you have a swollen throat, or your tonsils or feel swollen in the back of your throat, these are a sign that they're working and doing their jobs. But when they get overused or infection becomes too much, these oftentimes have to be taken out. Chances are great many of you listening to this right now has had your tonsils and or your adenoids removed, especially in your younger days. That's because they weren't doing their job, or they did their job way too good, or got an infection. They're coming into contact with a lot. Think about all the things that we breathe in, the bacteria, the fungi, all these different things, the viruses that come in through our nasal or respiratory passages. These are trying to stop that. It's one of the first lines of defense with the respiratory system. The thymus gland. The thymus gland, we mentioned it, I think, in the endocrine system briefly. It was on our diagram. It kind of is one of those that's in both. It's located in front of the aorta, but behind the sternum. Hopefully you know anterior and posterior, what they mean. It processes white blood cells known as T lymphocytes, or just shortly T cells. T cells. The maturation of it is stimulated by the hormone thymosin. That happens during puberty. And then you can see things kind of let off from there. T cell production is reduced with increasing age because the gland begins to shrink. Fat and connective tissue start to replace it. So after adolescence, we really start to lose a little bit of our thymus gland. And that's one reason you can see there in that third bullet point down, the smaller one, the defensive mechanisms of the body diminish with age. When you hear about people, becoming more susceptible to infection and what they're facing because they're so old, sometimes it's due to things like the thymus gland not working nearly as well as it did earlier in life. By age 70, the thymus is only a tenth the size it was at age 10. So the immune system, you can think about it like that. It's only 25% as powerful as it once was. That's why elderly people can be more susceptible to infections. Things like pneumonia or the flu is more of a killer of older people than it is younger people. Chances are great if you got the flu, you'd be absolutely fine no matter what strain it is. Yeah, you may go through a few days of feeling like junk, but you're going to make it out the other side. Somebody in their 70s, 80s, 90s, that same flu bug, that same virus may possibly even kill them. because it weakens their body at an extent greater than their immune system can fight it off. The thymus gland shrinking is one reason behind that. The spleen is the largest lymphatic system organ. It's in the abdominal cavity. You can kind of see where that is in that left-hand picture. The spleen, it filters blood. And in this blood, there are some abnormal cells that come through there. And the spleen helps pull those cells out of it. So just like you can think about the kidneys, how blood filters through there, it also filters through the spleen. But instead of removing excess water and different things and causing urine to be produced, the spleen just removes these abnormal cells. And then how does it get out of the system? It goes into the lymphatic system, connects with all that, kind of moving these things out of the body. See, their blood vessels in the spleen are lined with macrophages, which remove debris in the blood. Macrophages is just immune cells. And that is the end of our first little section. Please watch this. Please answer the quiz questions, any other assignments, and feel free to use this as you do.